What is going on, Colts Nation? And welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Your guys, Cody and Derek, back with another one, guys. And guys, training camp is pretty much upon us at this point. We are a couple days out from officially training camp beginning. So with that being said, we're going to look at a few different key position battles ahead of training camp that we're going to talk about. And Derek, in the spirit of talking about these different position groups and these different, all the stuff we've just talked about, and now looking ahead to training camp, we have to start by talking about the most heated and most talked about by far position battle going into training camp. That is the quarterback one position battle between Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. Now, there's so much I feel like that can be said about, both these quarterbacks. I mean, we've talked about it ad nauseum, not just us, but everybody's been talking about it all off season. Yep. Who's going to win that battle? Who's going to be QB1 this year? Because Anthony Richardson, through the first 2 years, he's had some very up and down moments. And you bring in Daniel Jones for a pretty substantial contract for a real legitimate quarterback competition. It's going to be so fascinating, man, to see how this does play out throughout the course of training camp, preseason. Because right now, I feel like it's pretty much anyone's game right now.
There's also just a lot of luck, and there's a lot of mystery behind this too, right, Cody? Because right now, you don't know how Daniel Jones and especially Anthony Richardson are going to play throughout this offseason, right? We hope that we see Anthony Richardson develop and that he surrounded himself around the right people. He had Josh Allen's QB specialist coach come out and help him with his throwing mechanics and all these other things. He was down in Florida and all this other stuff, training and doing all this stuff. So, and we've seen it too, Cody, right? We've seen the videos in the offseason before Richardson had some re-aggravation of the shoulder. When he was throwing, we saw the mechanics looked a little different. The footwork was different. The way he threw the football was different. There were definitely some things that we saw he looked better than what he did last year when throwing the football. Now, obviously, that is him just throwing routes to wide receivers. How is that going to translate to playing against regular defenses throughout the entirety of the offseason and this year? How is it going to look? I have no idea. And of course, when we look at Daniel Jones too, we don't know what Daniel Jones we're going to get, right? We don't know if this is the 2019, 2020 Daniel Jones where we saw, Daniel Jones have a few less turnovers, but the touchdown numbers were pretty decent. The yards weren't too bad and, wasn't by far and away a very good quarterback, but was easily an average to at times above average quarterback, which, is definitely better quarterback play than we've gotten in the last several years versus are we going to get 2022 Daniel Jones? Are we going to get 2023 Daniel Jones where Daniel Jones just looked lost behind that Giants offensive line and just seemed like he had no idea what was going on? Is that the Daniel Jones that we're going to get? Ultimately, there's just a lot of question marks about neither one of these guys really deserve this job right now. Hopefully we find out if one of them is deserving of it, and hopefully we see one of these guys drastically improve from the last time that we saw them, and then we can see a Colts season actually pan out in a positive light.
Right. I mean, we talked about it just a couple days ago on our live stream, right? There's definitely some perks to both guys. There's things they do well, and there's also a lot of drawbacks to both guys, right? If you're talking about Anthony Richardson, I mean, we've seen it, Derek. Anthony Richardson, super athletic. We know what he can do running the football. And also we know, Derek, he has the big arm. Like he can make some throws that very few guys in the NFL can make. Like you don't have to go very far to look. Week 1 last year, like look what he did in that throw against the Houston Texans. And that's why so many people are still on the Anthony Richardson train, because we know what he can do, what he is capable of. But the problem has been a couple different things. Number one, he's not stayed healthy. And then number two, last year, he was just not good at throwing the football for the most part. I mean, Derek, when you can't even hit 50% of your passes as an NFL quarterback, that is a huge problem. That is a huge issue with Anthony Richardson. I mean, there were so many times, and again, it wasn't all his fault, but there was also a lot to blame for him with some of the things that he was not doing. He was not hitting the easy things. He was not taking the things that the defense gave him a lot of times. It was either like boom or bust. It was like 60-yard play down the field or missed a 5-yard out, like that sort of stuff. It was just so much of inconsistency, but there was always those couple plays you had every couple games where you're like, wow, this kid could be special. But, I mean, to take what the Colts said about Carson Wentz years ago, he needs to make the layups. He needs to make the easy things look easy. And he's made them look a lot more difficult than they need to be. So it's been very inconsistent play from a passing standpoint. And also, he just hasn't been healthy to play in 17 games since he's been drafted. So those are two things. Whereas you look at Daniel Jones, and I was just pulling up some stats for Daniel Jones, even in his worst years, Derek, he's been no worse than a 62 completion percentage quarterback.
Yeah.
That worst season was his rookie season where he completed, I guess, 61.9% of his passes. Yep. Other than that, he's been over 62% for the majority of his career. So, say what you want about Daniel Jones as a passer, but he's at least been fairly accurate. He's at least been an NFL quarterback caliber. So you look at that, you say Daniel Jones, he's got that athletic ability as well, and he's also a little bit more consistent from a completion percentage wise. Like he can actually hit some of the singles and doubles a little bit more than Anthony Richardson can. Now, where he doesn't thrive necessarily as much is he doesn't have that home run ability like Anthony Richardson has all the time, right? He can't bomb at 80 yards down the field off his back foot like AR did against the Texans. That's just not a thing. And he hasn't been a great passer anyway. It's not like he's been this great, NFL quarterback either by any stretch, but he's a little bit more consistent, or he has been in his career, probably because also he's played more. He's been more available as well. Throughout, he's missed some time, but for the most part, he's been a lot more available than Anthony Richardson has through his career. So, there are perks and drawbacks of both guys. And I guess it's just kind of like, what is your taste? Do you want more of a quarterback that's going to be a game manager, that's going to, hopefully just take what the defense gives him a little bit and also has the ability to scramble if need be? Or do you want the kid with the huge ceiling, but potentially the very low floor as well? That's kind of where we're at right now when it comes to both these quarterbacks. Both do things really well. Both really struggle in some areas that are really important to make a good quarterback. So kind of where we think we sit right now, Derek, with both these guys.
Well, if you ask the majority of people, they want the quarterback that's going to complete 63% of his passes,
right?
Or potentially even higher, right? Because that's how you sustain drives. That's how you win games. That's how you get yourself in the right position to do stuff like that. Is if you lose out on drives because you can't complete passes, then that puts your defense at a massive disadvantage and it leaves points off the field. Now, of course, like you said, with Anthony Richardson, you have that big playability and, maybe more of a home run potential than a Daniel Jones in some aspects. Like, again, when you get in the red zone, Anthony Richardson does a fantastic job in the red zone because the area is much more confined. It shrinks the field down a little bit, which I think actually helps Anthony Richardson. He doesn't have to zone out on the field as much. And so it makes everything just so much easier for him. And I'm sure that red zone wise that Anthony Richardson's going to be able to do that. It's just how much does Anthony Richardson's accuracy get better from this last season to now? Because it's not just the throwing mechanics. The throwing mechanics will only get you so far in being able to hit passes. But if you don't know where you're throwing the football to, then that's still going to be a massive issue. Now, last year, I think it got better from that perspective. I do think he got better in those. He still had a couple of throws where it was like, man, you can't do that. But I don't think it was as apparent as a lot of people would like to make it out to be. I think a lot of last year, again, the tight ends were terrible at catching the football. even some of your wide receivers, aka Adonai Mitchell, that were having very much with difficulties of getting certain completions down. And that definitely drastically changes your completion percentage. But yeah, if you're going to have an Anthony Richardson season again where he completes 52% of his passes versus Daniel Jones, who has a better offensive line than he ever had, hasn't had a running back as talented as Jonathan Taylor since Saquon Barkley, and has more talented wide receivers now than he ever had in New York, and he completes 64% of his passes, then that's night and day. You're going to take Daniel Jones because you're going to take the guy that's going to complete 12% more of his passes throughout the year than Anthony Richardson. There is no amount of stuff that Anthony Richardson can do from an athletic standpoint that makes your offense more dynamic that way than Daniel Jones completing 12% more of his passes. Because Daniel Jones, while albeit is nowhere near the athlete that Anthony Richardson is, he has done RPO stuff in the past. He does have the ability to at least keep people honest in regards to that. So it's not like you're going to see home run plays with Daniel Jones that much, but he can keep him honest. But if Anthony Richardson is completing high 50%, then you start seeing a potential opportunity here for Anthony Richardson, because high 50s verging on 60%, that is more doable with an offense with that home run ability. But it really is going to come down to whether or not Anthony Richardson can even get close to how accurate Daniel Jones is. And again, give Daniel Jones the credit in the fact that, I mean, he's so much more polished, Cody, because he's been in the NFL for so many more years. And he was in college, I think, for at least 3 years, if not for 4. I think he was 4 at Duke. So, it's not like Daniel Jones was coming into the situation that Anthony Richardson has, because he's just so far behind.
Right. Yeah, no. And that's the problem, is like he can't really develop either because he's never on the field. He missed as much time, if not more, than he has been on the field. And Daniel Jones, I mean, from a completion percentage standpoint, and also Derek, from just an availability standpoint, he's been more consistent in pretty much every category. So that is kind of the big thing. And so I understand why there's a lot of Daniel Jones people out there that say, hey, he gives us the best chance to win. We roll with him. But I also get on the other side where it's like, well, you invested a top 5 pick in this kid, Anthony Richardson, give him the benefit of the doubt and give him the chance. But I think, Derek, I'm kind of at the point where, and I don't know where you're at this point. I think I do, but I'm kind of at the point where I'm like, whatever quarterback you think gives you the best chance to win, you just haven't won in so long. It's kind of like, I'm like, whatever at this point. Whoever you think gives you the best chance to win, just do it. If Anthony Richardson can't beat out Daniel Jones, Derek, we have another problem. I mean, frankly, we do. If he can't beat out Daniel Jones in year 3 of him, I don't know if he's going to be the guy. I just hate to tell you, but I just don't think he's going to be the guy if he can't beat him out.
Oh, I firmly believe that, and I think a lot of people will. And, again, regardless of the time situation, sure, he may be in the NFL for another 2 years, and he goes to another team that has the time to have him sit behind somebody and, learn more mechanics and become a better quarterback. And who knows, maybe Anthony Richardson has a resurgence several years down the line after he's, grown up a little bit more. Because again, he just turned 23 and he's now about to enter his 3rd year into the NFL. So, I mean, he's young compared to the standards of your NFL quarterbacks that are coming into the league now. I mean, Cody, it's normal now for 23, 24-year-olds to be a quarterback and coming into the league at that age. And Anthony Richardson's about to be in his 3rd year as an NFL quarterback. So it shows you just how much younger he is in comparison to everybody else. But you are right in the fact that I want Anthony Richardson to be the guy. I really want to see it happen. But you're right. If Daniel Jones truly is a far step ahead of Anthony Richardson, and you feel he is the best shot to give you a chance to win this year, then you have to play Daniel Jones. And you're right. If Daniel Jones ends up being the guy, it may just not be a situation that you have time for when it comes to Anthony Richardson, unless you want to continue to run it back with Daniel Jones and then have Anthony Richardson sit again and, be able to hope that he continues to get better. But I mean, time is just not something that the Colts have right now. When it comes to Chris Ballard and when it comes to Shane Steichen, Steichen less because Steichen's about to enter his third season and the Colts do have an even record with even an unstable quarterback situation. Steichen hasn't had much to go with off of that. But for Ballard especially, I mean, this isn't year 9. And it's only it's your 6th season now where you don't have Andrew Luck and we're still struggling to figure out a quarterback situation. Richardson just doesn't have the time. He has to show that he's got something to work with, or else, it's going to be game over for Anthony Richardson and potentially even Chris Ballard.
Yep. No doubt. I mean, this is going to determine, I think, the future of a lot of these guys. It's going to determine the future of Ballard, and I think Steichen as well, because if you go now 2 years in a row where you're not making the playoffs, I know the quarterback situation hasn't been great, and it may not be totally fair to Shane Steichen, but that's kind of where you're at, where you drafted this kid. You were a part of that process. If he fails, you might have to go down with the ship, which stinks, but it is what it is. Yeah. So all that to say, it's going to be a wild quarterback competition, and I'm very fascinated to see how it does play itself out because both these guys are, former top picks, and both these guys have the talent to do it and be good quarterbacks in this league. But both these guys have struggled with very similar things. Now, Anthony Richardson a lot more so in the consistency standpoint, but yeah, we'll just have to see, man, how it does play itself out, but really excited for camp here coming out to start to get this quarterback competition right away. And yep. I do kind of wonder what Anthony Richardson's role is going to look like to start coming off of that, what was that, like that aggravated thing in his shoulder. I'm curious to see kind of what that looks like for him right away. And, does that give Daniel Jones the early advantage? He's coming off a time where he had, multiple weeks of minicamp and Anthony Richardson was on the sidelines once again. So that kind of stuff, that matters. That really does matter. But AR is going to have a lot of work to do, I think, in order to make sure he can be counted on as QB1. So we'll have to see how the next couple weeks and months really play themselves out before the Colts play the Miami Dolphins in week 1 starting in September. So, Guys, let us know your thoughts in the comments down below when it comes to this QB1 battle. Who do you want to win? Let us know and drop your hopeful winner here in the comments down below. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We greatly appreciate it. Like we said, guys, we are going to be getting you covered for all of training camp. So if you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you know when we drop fresh content just like this. But guys, that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, guys, go Colts.